Hey, what's good, fam? It's your boy Ian here with a new series that explores the worst bosses in history. I've made a lot of videos with tips on how to up your leadership game like a boss. I'm obviously a nerd about behavioral sciences that apply to leadership, but I've also always been a nerd about history. History is chronicling interesting human behavior that shapes our course. As we all know, it's important to learn from both the wins and mistakes of our past. Now, there are currently still plenty of shitty bosses and work environments, but as a whole, employers, leadership, and work conditions have vastly improved in our modern age. We'll learn about some ridiculously, terribly, absurdly bad bosses as we investigate the worst bosses in history. Now, obvious choices are history's dictators and tyrants like Hitler, Saddam Hussein, Idi Amin. I plan for videos on these apex horrifying bosses, but I'd like to first focus on some history's more traditional terrible bosses. So for our first worst bosses, we have partners Max Blanck and Isaac Hayes of the Triangle Waist Company. I'm pretty sure you've heard of these two idiots, as they were the bosses of the infamous Triangle Shirtwaist fire on March 25th, 1911. I remember learning about this terrible event in elementary, high school, even college. Blanck and Harris insisted on keeping the doors locked from the outside in order to prevent theft of their products by their employees. Unfortunately, a fire broke out on the 8th floor, and the 9th floor was never alerted to the danger, and out of the 200 employees locked in, 146 died by either being consumed by the fire or jumping from the window. Firefighters were unable to help much as their ladders and hoses only reached about 6 floors up. This tragic event did eventually lead to demands for increased regulation of the health and safety of workers, and is considered a pivotal sacrifice in raising awareness about employee work conditions and safety. So having 146 of your employees tragically die from a fire that most would have been able to escape from, have you not been a greedy, evil boss? Is disgustingly terrible. But wait, there's more. Prior to the fire, Blanck and Harris had become increasingly successful, reaching over $1 million in sales by 1908 by producing cheap shirts in large quantities. This was done completely on the backs of their workers, mostly women and girls, working long hours with little pay. Foremans would inspect each worker for theft before leaving, and they kept the workers locked in for extra protection of inventory and profits. Increasingly poor work conditions did lead to strikes by the workers. Instead of listening to their demands, though, the owners hired private police to beat and attack the protesting workers. However, as profits suffered during the extended strikes, Blanck and Harris did agree to shorter hours and higher wages, so they returned to work. Just over a year later, in 1911, the fire broke out that killed 146 of those same workers. Due to public outrage, the owners were eventually charged with 7 counts of manslaughter. But even after 100 sensitive testimonies from witnesses and mounting evidence, Blanck and Harris were still both acquitted of their charges. The owners also received $60,000 in insurance money. That's $400 per worker who died. However, they eventually reached a settlement with the workers' families and paid a week's wages for each worker who perished. Most likely that was only between $8 to $12. That's a quarter of 1% of what they received from the insurance company. Even after this terrible catastrophe, they continued their business practices of poor working conditions for their employees, and they received various fines over the years. Now, they eventually closed their company in 1918 due to low profit from their bad rep. I mean, nobody liked them. This event is one of the more blaring examples of treating your employees badly is just bad for business. Not understanding the negative impact shitting on employees has on a business seems to be a common theme for history's worst bosses. So check back as we investigate more worst bosses in history. And while you're here, how about return to some positivity with some leadership tips and some silly work humor by checking out these next videos.